We have not talked all that much at this event yet about sustainability and climate change. Philippe, you are the grandson of the legendary sea documentarian Jacques Cousteau and an advocate yourself for ocean exploration and investment. You believe passionately that oceans are not being invested in the way they should be,
Indeed.
that we're squandering opportunity. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that I am an investor with a lot of capital, and you have 10 minutes to convince me to put that money toward the oceans. All right?
All right.
So I'm going to ask you about 6 different topics related to oceans. For each one, 5 different topics. I thought I had that wrong. And for each one, you're going to have 90 seconds to answer. So it's going to kind of be like, for those of you who watch Pardon the Interruption on ESPN, it's going to be a little bit like that.
And I have notes, so I'm ready to keep it tight.
All right. You ready to go?
Yes.
Or as we say, are you ready to dive in? All right. I know, it's a terrible dad joke. I know. All right. Let's start the clock. Question number 1. So investment in space exploration, 100 times more than ocean exploration. Why is that? Like, what are we underestimating?
So listen, it won't be a surprise. Of course, I'm a huge advocate of ocean exploration, and I believe it should be our focus, but it is not, as you pointed out, because much of the ocean still remains a mystery. It surprises a lot of people. We've mapped every crater on Mars, but have only explored about 20% of the ocean. So that is our real frontier. But we're investing billions of dollars in the belief that in some magical future of space exploration for humans, or that we can achieve somehow multiplanetary life, it is nonsense. From any perspective, scientific, technological, economic, biological, the hurdles to any serious human exploration of space are enormous, and the rewards are paltry. 3 years round trip to Mars, 10 times that to Europa, 500 billion a flight. Even if we send a spaceship every single day for the next 1,000 years, we'd maybe save a few million souls. But what about the remaining 99.5% of the Earth's population? And then, of course, there's the issue of what we do when we get there. Terraforming, not possible. Who wants to live on Mars and eat potatoes for the rest of your life? Not me. So we need to be thinking about how we invest in our oceans as the source of solving our problems.
That was perfect. Wow. See? And you beat
Boom,
the bell.
I beat the bell.
Perfect. All right. Number 2, sea levels rising. Are the oceans just a victim to climate change, or could they help in some way?
It's a great question. And let's level set here, everybody, right? The greatest threat to our planet is climate change, not AI. Climate change is an ocean problem. I'm going to say that again. Climate change is an ocean problem, and therefore we cannot solve the climate crisis without restoring and protecting the ocean, period. And all too often we look at terrestrial solutions like planting trees, but honestly, trees. So it should be a bluer future, not a greener future. We have a bias to green and land because we're terrestrial creatures. I get that. But instead we should be thinking blue because nothing exists. No green exists without the blue. And to paraphrase a famous quote of politics then, think about this. It's the ocean, stupid. Here's the exciting part. The ocean is also a source of extraordinary economic potential and growth. It's our largest carbon sink. It creates most of our oxygen, provides food for billions of people. The Amazon may get the headlines, and it is a critically important ecosystem. But it roughly absorbs about 25% of the world's carbon. The ocean is 60%. We keep on planting trees, but mangrove forests absorb 6 to 8 times more carbon than a terrestrial forest. They benefit coastlines. They provide nurseries for fisheries that feed millions of people. So while we see the headlines about bleaching coral and collapsing fisheries and the like, while the ocean is a victim, it is also our greatest ally. And this isn't just about protecting coral reefs. I warned Bob I go a little long on this one. It's not about protecting coral reefs, whales, or fish for the sake of nature. It's about doing it for the sake of humanity. I want to give you one quick example. In the 1990s, Somalia was a failed state. Without a navy to protect its nearshore fisheries, illegal fishing fleets from Russia, China, the EU began pulling out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of fish every year. And the fishermen who had made their livings, had fed their children off those fisheries, were now destitute. They armed themselves to fight off these illegal fishing boats and got money in return for those ships. The light bulb went off. Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, Al-Shabaab began arming these fishermen and enabling this piracy that has cost the global economy trillions of dollars, tens of thousands of lives over the last 30 years. There's a Department of Defense report that summarizes it simply at the end. It says, for a few $1 million of fisheries conservation investment, all of that could have been avoided. And now it's happening again in Senegal and West Africa. We are fishing out communities that's driving illegal migration into Europe or driving those people into the arms of the terrorist organizations that are tearing the Sahel apart. The oceans are critical, and if we don't invest in them, we pay the price.
All right, next topic. Can the byproducts of our ocean impact other industries, other areas, manufacturing, healthcare? Like, what else can we do with the ocean?
That's a really important question because, as I mentioned just a minute ago, this isn't just about protecting the ocean for the ocean's sake. This is about recognizing that whether or not you care about climate change or altruism, whatever it is, the ocean is an enormous opportunity to make money and to secure our future at the same time. Listen, feeding the world, global seafood markets are expected to reach close to $1 trillion by 2030, with annual growth over 9%. Yet currently only 50% of that is based on aquaculture. The opportunity to grow and feed food and feed people in a sustainable, regenerative way is enormous. Materials and construction markets could be turned on their heads through plastic alternatives from seaweed from companies like Sway, or environmentally carbon negative concrete pioneered by folks like Partana. Energy, ocean-based energy, pharmaceuticals. Think that AZT, one of the early treatments of AIDS, was derived from a Caribbean reef sponge. Financial markets, regenerating and rebuilding coral reefs, like our company, Voyacy Ventures, can drive untold billions of dollars of investment. Because governments and individuals around the world are realizing that trillions of dollars of real estate, hundreds of millions of lives are on the line, and protecting those investments and the lives are an economic opportunity that is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. It cuts across innovation and growth in virtually every industry you can think of. The opportunity for investment in the ocean and extraordinary returns is enormous. On the flip side, the consequences are catastrophic.
All right.
Woo! Just under the wire-ish.
All right. So you've often talked about how to capture the public's attention about the oceans, you need to have a good story.
Indeed.
Hollywood, often stories about the oceans aren't quite as compelling maybe as the stories about space. How do you think about how Hollywood and our impressions of the ocean have been impacted?
Well, I always say that the Gene Roddenberry has a lot to answer for. And I'm friends with Rod, his son, who, by the way, is a big ocean guy. And listen, I grew up on TNG. Any TNG fans in the audience? Right? Come on, Picard, the best. But the biggest challenge that the ocean faces is the fact that it's out of sight and out of mind. And frankly, we've been dreaming about the stars for millennia. And the ocean has been a black abyss below which about 600 feet, it's pretty much dark all the time. And it was really only 70 years ago when my grandfather invented scuba diving, underwater cameras, and launched his eponymous television series and films that the world got a glimpse of the ocean. It's been a single human lifetime we've truly been exploring the ocean. And frankly, space gets to cheat. Because the reality of space is nothing like the movies, but Hollywood has seized on this, fascination of space and space colonization and created all these fictional narratives about how interstellar exploration is possible and can save the human race. It's absolute nonsense. We sit here on this extraordinary miracle of nature. William Shatner, I want to paraphrase him. You probably know he did the Blue Origin flight. And when he came back, this is what he said. I turned my head to face the other direction, to stare into space. I love the mystery of the universe, but I discovered that the beauty isn't out there, it's down here with all of us. It was among the strongest feelings of grief I have ever encountered. Every day we are confronted with the knowledge of further destruction of Earth at our hands. My trip to space was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like a funeral.
So as our time starts to run out here, what do you want us to remember? You know, like space, oceans. Like, what do we need? What do we need to act on?
So I don't want to continue talking about interplanetary lives. I want to close by speaking about your lives, the lives of your children and of your grandchildren. Theirs are the lives that we should be talking about. Theirs are the lives that we can see, that we can touch, the lives that we should do everything we can to protect. Now, while near-Earth space operations does have value in learning about and protecting this planet, the manned space exploration is hubris. The gulf between investments in ocean and our investment in space is insultingly enormous. But that is where the opportunity lies. What my family has been warning about longer than any other, the threats to climate and biodiversity that are now coming home to all of us, are also wake-up calls to the enormous potential that exists if we invest in the systems that make life on this planet possible. 6 years ago, my wife and I co-hosted a show for Discovery Shark Week. We returned to the Bikini Atoll, where in the 1950s, the United States detonated 23 nuclear bombs, destroying everything above and beneath the surface of the ocean for miles around. The worst fire and brimstone that humanity could engineer. And yet, because of the radiation, it became a marine protected area, like a national park in the ocean for the last 60 years. And when we returned there, the thriving coral, the schools of 70 and 80 reef sharks swirling around us was like nothing I had ever seen. We had destroyed that area, but nature is resilient if we give it a chance. So if you walk away with one message from this discussion, I want it to be the sustainability is bullshit. It has become an impotent byword for doing less harm. You are some of the smartest people in the world, forging ahead with AI and social media. You're creating enormous wealth and solving seemingly intractable problems, but none of that matters if we don't solve this problem. So instead of sustaining the way the world is, with collapsing oceans, runaway climate change, disappearing biodiversity, climate conflicts, illegal migration, driven by resource degradation, we should be investing in the technologies and innovations that regenerate and rebuild our world. So help me help you. We are headed pell-mell towards 3 degrees of warming, and scaling solutions is a race against time that all of our lives depend on. And I'll end with a simple dream that my grandfather and father shared with me growing up, that every child born has the right to walk on healthy soil, to breathe fresh air and drink clean water in peace and security. That's a vision that I hope we all share for our children. And the only path to achieve that vision takes us on a winding road through the wonders and opportunities of the ocean.
Well, Philippe, I guess what I could say is consider me an investor. I'm in.
Fantastic.
I'm in. Philippe Cousteau Jr., everyone.
Thanks, everybody.